No dad joke today. So have you ever had this issue where you're planing along nicely and something nice and easy like pine, and then all of a sudden, see if I can get it this way, there we go, it jams up on you. And now it's not cutting anything and you're getting all this junk in here. And you can see how you have all this clog up in there. It's underneath here. You know your iron is nice and sharp, but what is causing that clog? And when you open it up, you'll either find out that it's all packed right in front of the chip breaker like that, or it's actually stuck underneath and you'll see it in between the bow and the iron itself. So let's take a look at how to fix that. So the first thing I want to do is take it apart. And I know that this is sharp. I just sharpened it and I could trim hairs if I wanted to. So I don't have any worry about this. I have a good sharp edge here. What I want to do is remove the gap in between these. These two aren't mating well. This particular chip breaker also has two issues. Number one, there's a bit of gap in the middle. It touches here on the tip and touches here on the tip to the iron. And so there's a bit of a space here, so when small chips come in, they can jam in that gap. Number two, it is rounded over. So rather than this edge coming to a point at the iron, it actually bends back under and creates a little concave spot for chips to be in there. So it basically funnels all the chips into the chip breaker. So we are going to, number one, flatten the front edge of this so that it contacts flat all the way across the chip breaker. And number two, grind down this edge. Now, if this is done well, you should only have to do this once in a plane's life, unless the chip breaker has been banged up or damaged. So I'm coming here to the stones, and a lot of people call this sharpening the chip breaker because in reality you are putting a bit of edge on here. But this is such a soft metal in comparison to the iron. It's not going to hold an edge. It's not something you're actually sharpening. And usually I'm just going to be using the coarse stone, though I might finish it up a little bit on the fine. I'm going to put this on here on the edge, and rather than lifting it up flat, I'm going to let it hang down a little bit so it's sliding on this. So it's just, down at a 3 or 4 degree angle or so. And I'm going to slide it back and forth along here until I get scratch patterns running all the way across. And this does not take very long at all, because this is so soft. Yeah, and there you go. That's all it took, that little bit there. And then I'm going to do the same thing over here. And that's all it takes on that. And I have a nice clean scratch pattern running all the way across. So if I put this in here now, slide it back into place. Now what I can do is actually get down here on the ground, and I'm going to look through from behind. And so I'm going to look through that bow in the chip breaker. And I'm going to see if I can see any light coming through. And I do actually see some light. So I'm actually seeing it now twisted. So it's touching here, but not touching over here. So that's a problem with the bend in the chip breaker. Let's fix that. So what I've got here is this whole chip breaker twists, kind of. So this is a low point and this is a high point. So I'm going to set it here on the edge, halfway between the screw and the bow, and I'm going to lift it up just a little bit. I'm going to hit the edge that needs to come down. Not much. Just enough to bend it a little bit. I'll put it back in there and try it again. You may see me doing this several times, and I'll get down and I'll check it again. There, I don't see any light coming through between those two. The next thing I need to do is fix that spot where this rounds back around, so I don't have a blunt edge or a catching edge on there. So I actually want to lift it up and sharpen this edge. I'm going to need to take off a little bit of material, so I'm going to use this. And I'm going to basically grind down that front until it meets those scratches that I made earlier. So just like sharpening a plane iron. Yeah, and here you can see I accidentally hit way up here on the bow, so I need to lift this up even further. There, that's where I want to get, but I need to take a lot off. So, this is actually going to take a minute or two. And with how much material I have to take off on this one, I'm actually going to use a file. File is faster, and with this softer metal, no problem. Don't use a file on your iron, because they're about the same hardness. They should be. So now after taking off most of the material, I'm going to come back here. I'm just going to clean up that edge a little bit. Now this really does not need to be all that sharp, but number one, it looks good to have a clean, sharp edge. You can see I kind of rock it down and up, trying to keep that bevel, or to keep that rounded surface, smoothing it all the way across. And then I will end up stropping it just to make it look shiny. There really is no reason to do it. It's not going to cause much friction issue with the chip, because the chip has already been cut and removed. But there you go, nice and shiny again. So now when we attach this back, we should have a nice clean transition point between the iron and chip breaker. So what you want to do is, number one, look through there and see if you see any light coming through. And then number two, put your nail in there. Well, back it up a little bit so you can kind of feel it. Put your nail in there, and does your nail catch? Or does it slide right over? If your nail catches on something, then the chip of wood probably will catch on that too. Just make sure it's a nice, smooth transition all the way across. And then reinstall into the irons. So now, whether either going with the grain or even against the grain, I'll be getting these happy curls wherever I go, fixing the problem. Even in the hardwoods, like, well, hard maple, I can still get nice curls without clogging. Curly hard maple with that. Beautiful. There you go. Fixed your problem. There you have it. If you find yourself clogging up and chips are grinding up underneath the chip breaker, all you have to do is make sure that the chip breaker matches the iron. Make sure there's no gap between it, so when you hold it up to the light, you don't see any light coming through there. Make sure that there's a nice smooth transition from the iron to the chip breaker. We don't want anything in there for the chip to stop on and catch on. We want it to glide over the chip breaker nice and easy. So it's kind of like sharpening in that you're doing both sides like a bevel, and you are making a bevel, but it's such a soft material, I don't know if you can call it sharpening. So yeah, that's about it. I hope you enjoyed this. It was a bit of an inspirational thing. I ran into this problem a lot when I was first getting started in restoring hand planes. So if it helps you, I'm thankful for that. If you have any questions, ideas, or comments, let me know down below. I do want to say thank you to the patrons on Patreon. This was a topic suggested by them. If you'd like to find out more about that or help out with Patreon, you can do that right down here. Also, if you'd like to see more behind the scenes footage or subscribe, go ahead and do that. Until next time, have a wonderful day.